The stars hung like frozen tears over Zartheta, their ancient glow unable to pierce the wrathful swirl of its dying red sun. Radiation storms churned the atmosphere, and the remains of a shattered moon drifted like a noose around the planet's throat. Beneath the chaos, hidden deep inside a scorched canyon, Commander Juno Kade stood at the edge of a steel platform, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun bled across the sky. His cybernetic eye twitched, amber scanning pulses ran across the ridgeline. No movement. No signatures. Behind him, the wind whispered through torn banners, once white, now stained in rust and ash. The emblem barely visible, a broken earth inside a ring of fire. "You're late," said a voice. Juno didn't turn. He knew the cadence, sharp, clipped, wrapped in quiet resentment. Lieutenant Marin Sol, his second in command, emerged from the shadows, helmet tucked under her arm, eyes sharp as blade edges. "I wasn't waiting for you," Juno replied. "You're always waiting," she muttered. "For something that's never coming back." He said nothing. Just watched the sun burn lower, dissolving behind a storm front of violet static. Marin stepped beside him. "Our scout drones returned. Concord fleet, 93 ships. Fast. Armed. They'll be here in less than 6 hours." Juno didn't flinch. "Good. Let them come." Marin's jaw tightened. "We have 12 ships that can actually move, Kade. 85% of our ammunition is scrap. The kids haven't seen a real fight, and the engines on the Scorn are older than both of us combined." "They're not kids," Juno said flatly. "They're human." Marin scoffed. "That's not armor out there. It's mythology." Now Juno turned to her. "Myth is what they made of us. I plan to remind them what we really are." She stared at him, searching for something in his face, resolve, perhaps. Or regret. She found neither. "You still hear it?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. She didn't need him to. The hum returned, the faint, broken melody only he seemed to hear. A child's voice, crackled by time and distance, singing the lullaby his sister once whispered as earth crumbled around them. It lived in the back of his skull, like a scar too deep to cauterize. Juno stepped away from the edge. "Prep the strike pods. Load everything that breathes. We're launching first." Marin caught his arm. "This isn't survival. It's suicide." His voice dropped to a low rasp. "Then it'll be the most memorable suicide in galactic history." Below deck, the Scorn breathed in slow, labored wheezes. Its spine creaked with every pulse of its aging core. In the engine bay, techs worked with trembling hands, coaxing miracles from ancient systems. Juno moved through the halls like a ghost made of iron, silent, eyes fixed ahead. Soldiers paused, watching him pass. He nodded to no one. Spoke to no one. But they followed. In the barracks he stopped. A young man, Eli Vorn, barely 20, struggled to strap a plasma rig to his back. The gear was too large for his frame, his fingers clumsy. "First time?" Juno asked. Eli snapped to attention. "Why yes, Commander." "Sorry, won't happen again." "You nervous?" "No, sir." Juno stepped closer, tightened the strap with a firm tug. "Don't lie. Fear's human. Use it. Let it sharpen you. But don't drown in it." Eli nodded, teeth clenched. "I won't, sir." "You remember why we fight?" Eli blinked. "Because they forgot us." Juno's eye glowed faintly. "No. Because they erased us. We're not here to survive, Vorn. We're here to remind them who we were, and who we still are." Command deck. Final briefing. Holograms glimmered, Concord fleet positions, weapons data, entry vectors. Marin stood beside the table, arms crossed, while officers and captains gathered in a half circle. Juno entered. The room straightened like a spine. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "They outnumber us 10-1. Their ships are newer. Their tech is cleaner. Their arrogance is total. And that's our advantage." He paced slowly. "They think we're fractured. Primitive. Gone. That's what they wrote in their archives. That humanity fell. That we were too soft, too savage, too emotional to endure. He stopped. They're wrong. A beat of silence. I don't want your loyalty. I want your fury. Your fire. Your memory. The way we built cities in ash. The way we outlived planets. The way we crawled out of extinction again and made the stars speak our name. He turned to Marin. Open the vault. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, but she nodded. From the far wall, a panel hissed open. Inside, a single case. Matte black. Engraved with an ancient symbol, a feather burning in a clenched fist. Juno placed his palm against the scanner. The case opened. Inside, Project Echo, a relic from Earth's last days. A device not of war, but of memory. A sound weapon. A song weapon. He lifted it, placed it gently on the table. Tonight, he said, we fight not with numbers. Not with fire. We fight with our story. And we let it burn through their minds like a virus made of sorrow and steel. He looked across the room, into the faces of orphans, exiles, the children of a forgotten Earth. Humanity isn't a race, he whispered. It's a warning. The void beyond Zartheta seethed with static. Out here, there was no sound, only the deep, endless pull of gravity and silence, broken by flickers of movement in the black. The Concord fleet arrived in perfect formation, rows of pale, crescent-shaped warships, their hulls smooth and glistening like blades drawn from oil. No banners. No signals. No warning. Just presence. Cold and absolute. At the center, Executor Varun Threx's flagship, the Benediction, its design a cathedral of bone-white alloy and pulsing violet glass. It hovered with quiet menace, unarmed to the eye, but capable of vaporizing moons. From its command dome, Varun watched. He didn't blink. His kind had evolved beyond it. A voice whispered into his ear through Neuro relay. Human contact confirmed. 12 ships. Minimal heat. No shielding. He didn't respond at first. Just stared into the deep. No formation? None. Their ships are drifting. Uncoordinated. Scattered. He smiled softly. They want to look broken. Let them. He turned from the view. Charge main emitters. Prepare to cleanse. Aboard the Scorned, Juno Kade sat alone in the memory chamber, a small, steel-encased room with walls etched in names. Thousands of them. The lost. The silenced. He held Project Echo in his lap. It vibrated faintly, not from machinery, but from resonance, like a heartbeat remembering itself. He pressed his fingers against its curved shell. The device clicked. A sound escaped, not a voice, not music, but a layered tapestry of sorrow, anger, and something deeper. Defiance. The cries of Earth's final broadcast. The sound of millions calling into the dark and being swallowed by it. A voice interrupted. All decks report ready, Commander. Marin's reflection hovered behind him in the polished metal. She didn't enter. He stood, cradling the device as if it were sacred. Begin signal transmission. Now? They're already listening. In the void between the fleets, an ancient human frequency ignited, barely audible at first, like static laced with broken melody. Then stronger. Clearer. A child's voice echoed across every Concord vessel. We remember the fire. We remember the sky falling. We remember the silence that followed. Crew members glanced at one another. Some turned to consoles, confused. You left us for dead. You erased our names. You buried our screams in data you called corrupted. A young Concord officer near Varun's command dais whispered. Sir, it's human code, audio only. Non-lethal. Varun closed his eyes, listening. But we are the scream. We are the corruption. We are the signal you cannot silence. Then silence. Until the screaming began. On board 3 Concord warships, systems flickered. Targeting sensors misaligned. Life support hiccuped. Interfaces displayed not data, but But images, flashes of burning cities, faces distorted in anguish, a child's hand pressed against glass. The humans weren't jamming their comms. They were hijacking their minds. On the Scorn's bridge, Juno stood tall before his crew. Broadcast loop initiated? Marin nodded. Feeding across all enemy frequencies. AI psionics, wetware, they're all exposed. Good. Juno's voice was calm. Phase 2. The screens before him lit up. 12 ships, drifting like derelicts moments ago, now shifting silently into attack paths. Their hulls still bore rust and patchwork plates, but each one came alive with fire-red thruster trails. Juno's ship surged forward, engines howling. Let them believe we're broken, he murmured. That's how all ghosts strike. On the benediction, Veruin's hands twitched, the first sign of disturbance in decades. They're playing with memory, he said. Sir? Asked the lead analyst, unsettled. They found the fracture. The human frequency rides the emotional cortex, turns regret into interface. It's barbaric. But effective? Veruin's eyes darkened. They use grief as a weapon. Their pain speaks like a god. A long pause. Redirect all processors to psychic filtration. Cleanse the line. But we'll lose tactical AI control. Then fire manually. Space exploded. Human ships ignited their payloads, not precision beams, but brutal, messy kinetic warheads. Spikes of ferromagnetic shrapnel. Detonations designed to blind sensors, rupture hulls. The Concorde ships reeled. They were elegant machines made for order. This was chaos. The Scorn tore through the formation like a burning arrow, its underbelly venting plasma, its guns roaring with primal violence. Concorde return fire strafed its sides, peeling armor, cracking its frame, but it didn't slow. Inside, Juno held fast to the rail. Sparks rained. Men screamed. Flames danced on console edges. Status? He barked. Marin shouted over the roar. 6 enemy ships disabled. 3 retreating. But they're adapting. They always do, Juno said. That's their mistake. He turned to Eli Vorn, now sweating at the targeting station. You ever see a thunderstorm hit a glacier? No, sir. Juno smirked. Watch. He keyed in a final override. Project Echo surged. The melody returned, this time not through comms, but through subspace itself. A wave of harmonic distortion rolled across the Concorde fleet, bending light, scrambling artificial gravity. A vibration that felt like a scream trapped in eternity. On multiple ships, command officers collapsed, sobbing, clutching their heads. They weren't being attacked physically. They were remembering. A species they forgot. A child's hand on a broken window. A voice that should have gone silent but didn't. Veruin stood alone, fists clenched behind his back. He knew what this was now. Not rebellion. Not resurgence. Resonance. Humanity hadn't died. It had simply become memory incarnate. They were no longer fighting a species. They were fighting trauma given form. He spoke softly into his command core. Mark this moment. Their signal will echo for centuries. Whether they win or die here, they've already returned. Back aboard the Scorned, hull buckling, engine shrieking, Juno watched as another Concorde cruiser broke apart, its core imploding in a burst of pale fire. He didn't cheer. He didn't flinch. He simply whispered, You ignored us. His grip tightened on the console. Now you remember. The Scorn spun into the void, hull torn, trailing fire like a comet made of vengeance. Inside, alarms screeched. Oxygen hissed from a ruptured valve. The scent of scorched circuitry clung to the air. Juno Kade's hands were black with soot. Blood streaked his temple, dripping past his jawline like war paint. He didn't sit. He didn't rest. Status, he snapped. Marin's voice crackled through smoke and static. 4 ships gone. 2 barely holding. Project Echo is degrading. Its resonance is dropping. How long? Maybe 12 minutes before Concorde dampens it completely. Juno wiped the blood from his brow with the back of his hand. Then we make 12 minutes count. He turned toward Eli Vorn, who was gripping the weapons console like it might vanish if he let go. Eli. The boy looked up, wide-eyed, trembling. You're not dying here, Juno said, calm but fierce. You're becoming something they can't erase. Eli nodded. Not because he believed it, but because someone he trusted did. Out in the dark, the Concorde fleet adjusted. Their ships realigned, smoother now, adaptive. Elegant predators shedding confusion. Inside the Benediction, Veruin Threx stood motionless, surrounded by screens of flame and loss. His face, though ageless, showed the first lines of pressure. The psychic bleed from Project Echo had slowed, but it left residue, memories that didn't belong. Human cities. Human love. 1,000 generations of emotion carved into nothing. They've infected our core, said a technician, barely above a whisper. No, Veruin replied. They've reminded it what it once feared. Another officer stepped forward. Do we deploy the purifiers? Veruin tilted his head. No. Not yet. Sir? We will give them what they seek. His hand gestured, slow and deliberate. Open a channel. On the Scorn's bridge, silence fell as the Concorde's signal pulsed through. A soft tone. Then a voice, precise, almost soothing. Commander Kade. Juno narrowed his eyes. Executor, he replied, voice like iron. I have watched your species longer than you know. I was present when the last human stronghold fell. I saw your mother speak to the void. Juno didn't respond. Veruin's voice continued. You fight with memory. With sound. With pain. That is impressive. A pause. But pain is not strategy. Grief is not victory. And memory, Juno cut in, is immortal. Veruin smiled behind the signal. Then let us test which survives longer, memory or precision. The signal cut. They're launching drones, Marin shouted. High-speed interceptors. No armor. No heat signature. They'll target Echo, Juno muttered. They're not coming for us. They're coming for the signal. He turned to the communications array, sparking, unstable. Divert Project Echo. Relocate the signal. To where? Marin asked. Juno's eyes were already locked on the tactical map. To me. Minutes later, Juno stood in the dropship bay, strapping into an old, narrow-pod fighter, a relic of Earth's last wars, built for speed and not survival. Marin stood at the hatch, staring him down. You'll never outrun them. I don't plan to. You're not thinking straight. No. I'm thinking exactly how a human would. He handed her the command chip for the Scorned. You run the rest. You keep Echo alive. You make sure Eli makes it out of this. Marin's throat tensed. I don't want your last orders. Too bad. You've got them. He stepped into the pod. The hatch sealed. Inside, the only sound was his breath, and the faint hum of Echo now embedded in the pod's signal array. Outside the ship, the enemy drones closed in, dozens, like a swarm of silver insects, coordinated and emotionless. The pod launched. He streaked into the void like a star that had forgotten it wasn't supposed to burn. Behind him, the Scorn veered hard, firing decoy flares and spinning away, carrying the rest of the fleet with it. The drones followed Juno. He accelerated. The pod screamed under the strain. Project Echoes surged louder. The signal expanded, no longer broadcasting grief, but something else. Joy. Laughter. A child's voice telling a joke, a mother singing softly, the low rumble of human love and celebration. Memories not of pain, but of life. The drones staggered. Some spun off course. Their algorithms weren't prepared for hope. Still, most held formation. Juno flew through debris fields and dying satellites, weaving like a man-ant through forgotten ruins. In his mind, his sister's voice hummed the lullaby again. Don't forget us. Don't let them forget. He reached the edge of the Concorde formation, beyond which lay nothing but the event horizon of Zartheta's collapsing sun. A whisper of a plan took shape. His fingers danced across the console. Computer, set course, collision path with the star. Lock signal array to my neural core. Amplify all memory nodes. Confirming pod will burn. Yeah, he muttered. So will history. The pod dove. The drones followed. In the Concorde fleet, Veruin watched the signal spike, brighter than ever. He saw it moving, away from the others, away from strategy. Straight into annihilation. And then, as it neared the star's outer corona, the signal changed again. It sang. Every Concorde ship froze. Every being felt it. Laughter and sorrow braided together. Humanity unfiltered. Pure. Terrifying. Then light. The pod reached the corona. It exploded in a blaze of white. The sound shattered through every channel like a scream and a hymn combined. Drones fell dead in space. Several Concorde ships flickered, stalled, went dark. Inside the Scorned, Marin watched the light vanish from the screen. She stood, silent, as the signal finally died. Eli whispered. He made them listen. No, Marin replied, voice low, eyes shining. He made them remember. 3 days later, the void over Zartheta was still littered with wreckage, human and alien. The battle was over. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was processing. The kind of silence that comes after something sacred has been broken open. Above the fractured Dyson ring, the Scorn drifted like a wounded beast, patched in haste, powered by fragments of will. Most of the crew was asleep for the first time in 2 days. Others walked the decks in stunned silence, as if afraid noise would undo what had been bought with fire. Marin stood at the viewport alone. Her reflection looked older than she remembered. Hair matted. Eyes rimmed in red. A commander now, but not the kind that gave speeches. The kind that bore the weight of someone else's sacrifice. She looked toward the sun, still smoldering where it had swallowed Juno Kade and his pod. He's gone, said Eli, stepping beside her. His voice cracked. Isn't he? Marin didn't answer right away. No signal. No beacon. No escape pod. Then why are we still here? He asked. Marin inhaled deeply, her eyes never leaving the sun. Because stories don't end when the person does. They echo. Eli looked down. I didn't get to tell him. I was scared the whole time. You think he didn't know? I thought I had to be brave. You were, she said. You're still here. Eli didn't reply. Just nodded, eyes fixed on the faint pulse in the star's corona where the signal once lived. Across the galaxy, something shifted. A Concorde battleship in orbit over the jungle world of Vaxti received a strange transmission, unmarked, looping. The officers ignored it for hours, until one of them played it out of curiosity. A child's laugh. Then a voice. They tried to forget us. But we sang. On the orbital rings of Titan's third moon, a Concorde AI paused mid-sentence during a fleet directive. Its voice glitched. Then began humming. A tune no one recognized. Except one old engineer, who dropped his tool with shaking hands. My mother used to sing that, he whispered. The AI never resumed the directive. At Concorde Central, Executor Veruin Threx sat in meditation, bathed in violet light, flanked by silence. Around him, statues of victory lined the chamber, symbols of his empire's control over chaos. But cracks had begun to form. Behind his closed eyes, the memory would not fade. The scream in harmony. The grief turned symphony. The human that turned death into a declaration. He opened his eyes. Is it still transmitting? He asked. An aide nodded. In fragments. It's not contained to physical space anymore. It travels through them. Veruin stood slowly. Them? Survivors. Witnesses. Concorde officers. Civilians. The signal's not digital now. It's psychological. Viral. Veruin walked to the window, staring out into the stars. You cannot erase a soul, he said. Sir? He turned, voice colder than ice. Begin evacuation of Sector 3. We cannot trust our own anymore. But the war's over. Veruin's eyes narrowed. No. Humanity is. Back on the Scorned, the last memory of Juno Kade wasn't his image on a screen or a line in a report. It was the recording he left behind, discovered 3 days after the battle in the pod's core backup, buried deep beneath encryption and firewalls. Marin gathered the crew in the central chamber. No one knew what to expect. She pressed play. Juno's voice quiet. Calm. No speech. No final battle cry. Just truth. If you're hearing this, I made it to the edge. Don't mourn me. Mourn what we had to become to be remembered. They thought we were fragile because we loved. They thought grief would break us. But they never understood, it's grief that taught us how to fight. Not because we want revenge, but because we remember. Silence. Then a closing line. You are the echo now. Make it ring. The room didn't cheer. They didn't cry. They just stood. Straighter. Taller. Like a people who had found themselves again. 6 months later. A gathering in a neutral starfield, once claimed by the Concord. Now unpatrolled. Untouched. Ships arrived. Dozens at first. Then hundreds. Human vessels, old and new. Converted mining rigs. Smugglers turned scouts. Survivors from colonies thought long gone. They came not for battle, but for witness. Marin stood at the front of the lead ship. The Scorned, fully rebuilt, painted in ash gray with a single crimson stripe across its hull. A tribute. Beside her, Eli, no longer the trembling boy from Zartheta. I can't believe how many came, he said. Marin smiled faintly. They didn't come for us. He nodded. They came for him. In the silence of space, across the gathered fleet, Project Echo was triggered one final time. Not as a weapon. As a tribute. A single tone. Then a song. Soft. Ancient. Human. One by one, the ships added their signals. A symphony. Not loud. Not angry. Just present. A message. Not to the Concord. Not to the galaxy. To time itself. We were here. We mattered. We still do.